Do sports take a mental toll on athletes? This is a recurring question for many high-performance athletes. Sports are a large part of the world, and making sure that these athletes are mentally healthy should be a top priority. Mental health issues around the world need to be addressed, and solutions need to be set in place. I've been playing softball since I was 4 years old, and I currently now play collegiate softball. I myself have been affected by the negative mental impacts that sports can have on an individual. I personally suffer with depression and sports anxiety, and it has affected me all of my life. First, I will talk about how athletes having access to mental health services can really help their mental health. Second, I will discuss how incorporating God into their sport can be a positive thing for an athlete's mental health. And lastly, I'll talk about the importance of targeting all ages and not just one age when trying to figure out how athletes can improve their mental health. For many people around the world, sports have been a huge part of their lives. Sports is a popular pastime, and many people around the world play it, and if you ask anyone, usually they've played a sport. In an article called "What Facilitates Collegiate Athletes Seeking Mental Health Care? Athletic Trainers' Perceptions," published in 2025 and written by Harker, Justin R. Purty, and Trent A. It states, given the general and unique stressors that collegiate athletes face and the high levels of mental health concerns they experience, both NCAA and National Athletic Trainers Association have published inter-association recommendations addressing the need for support, screening, and referral. Athletes, especially collegiate athletes, are experiencing a lot of stress. The stress in which they endure affects these athletes in a very negative way. Having resources so these athletes know how to regulate their emotions is really important. Majority of athletes struggle with mental health and struggle with similar issues. In another article called "Experiences of Current National Collegiate Athletic Association Division I Collegiate Student Athletes with Mental Health Resources," published in 2023, mentions the stressors that student athletes face include rigid schedules, academic responsibilities, expectations of coaches, overtraining, injuries, burnout, and team conflict. As awareness surrounding mental health issues among athletes grows, more and more individuals are coming out about promoting mental health services and their importance. So many athletes around the world I've seen have been promoting mental health, like Simone Biles and so many other athletes, and it has really inspired younger athletes to share their stories and go to therapists and really help them heal from any trauma they may have. Stigma around mental health has caused athletes to not want to reach out for help. There has been a lot of stigma around mental health in athletics for a long time. The stigma has caused athletes to be seen as weak for dealing with mental health issues. The article, "What Facilitates Collegiate Athletes Seeking Out Mental Health Care? Athletic Trainers' Perceptions," they add, the reasons why athletes underutilize counseling services in complex and numerous, but generally include mental health stigma, lack of knowledge about mental health, lack of access to mental health care, and negative attitudes about seeking care. As counseling and therapy for athletes becomes more available, the stigma is becoming smaller. Now that I've talked about athletes having access to mental health services, it is time to learn more about the mental health benefits of athletes incorporating God into their sport. Many athletes have been seeing improvements in their mental health by having God in the center of their life. So far in my softball journey, I have really seen my performance and my mental health improve as I've incorporated God into my life, especially within this past year. God has really impacted me in how I am seeing the world around me today. Within the article, "Gratitude of God and Mental Health well-being in U.S. collegiate athletes. The exploration power of perceived indebtedness in God and meaning in life. That article was published in 2024. It explains, taken together, the results of these studies suggest that feeling grateful under conditions of turmoil may help strengthen one's collaborative partnership with God and have individuals in a better position to handle stress. Gratitude can really improve one's mood, which is generally important when it comes to sports. Being in a position to handle stress is good for high-performance athletes. God helps athletes find a meaning in life. Feeling like one has a purpose in their sport and a sense of meaning in life can benefit their mental health. A lot of athletes today kind of have a hard time finding purpose in what they're doing. Again, the article that I just cited, it also claims general feelings of gratitude have been linked with a greater sense of meaning in life. Being religious and showing gratitude towards God has the ability to help an athlete with finding their sense of meaning of life. Mental health issues do not only take place in collegiate athletes, but is relevant for all ages. Understanding what the adolescents can have a negative experience with sports and knowing how to prevent that should be a priority. Sports can help children in their development, and shouldn't hurt them, but in some ways it does. Certain interventions could be done to make sure that young athletes are getting the benefits of the sport and not the opposite. Inside the article named Developing and Evaluating a Peer-Based Mental Health Literacy Intervention with Adolescent Athletes, published in 2022, it states, recent evidence indeed signals that sport-based interventions can meet goals of preventing mental disorders and promoting mental health. Checking in with young athletes and then changing something if something is hurting them in the sport could help the athlete want to continue to do the sport for many years to come. I know many athletes who've experienced burnout and who experience mental difficulties within sports have either quit their sport or moved on to something else, which can be rather unfortunate for athletes who have a lot of potential. Big events can happen in a young athlete's life, and it has the potential to negatively impact their mental health. COVID-19 was a historic event that happened during many different adolescents' lives. This pandemic affected a lot of adolescent athletes. In the article, Developing and Evaluating a Peer-Based Mental Health Literacy Intervention with Adolescent Athletes also says, specific mental health concerns considering a surge in eating disorder symptoms, especially relevant for athletes who need to fuel their bodies for optimal athletic performance, was reported early in the COVID-19 pandemic, April-May 2020, among current and former athletes. The traumatic experience caused a lot of mental health issues for young athletes. Knowing the impact of these traumatic events on athletes can help coaches and officials learn how to handle these young athletes if a traumatic event were ever to come about again. Today, I talked about how athletes need to have more access to mental health services. Second, I discussed how incorporating God into their sport can be a positive thing for an athlete's mental health. And lastly, I mentioned the importance of targeting young athletes' mental health and how that can help the future of sports. Athletes can deal with mental health struggles surrounding their sport by having access to mental health services, incorporating God into their sport, and targeting to help an athlete's mental health from all ages and not just one. In conclusion, without sports, there would be so much missing from the world, so much joy and entertainment. With the stigma surrounding mental health in sports decreasing, sport programs are becoming a more emotionally enjoyable experience. Society should recognize what is working for athletes in improving their mental health and what is not. It will only make the athletes stronger and more resilient. Thank you.